fellow classic TV fans, Ruta Lee is nothing less than a living legend. Her Hollywood history alone is very much a part of what adds the luster to Tinseltown. She's been entertaining and gracing our screens, both large and small, for decades. From the stage, classic films, to classic television, Ruta has done it all. She honors us with an encore return to the podcast to tell us about her ongoing charity work with the Thalians and discusses the upcoming ceremony to honor actor and philanthropist Gary Sinise. We also discuss some very fascinating events which have recently occurred in her very own home. A home which once belonged to none other than Orson Welles and his bride, Rita Hayworth. As always, Ruta's stories are energetic and full of humor and vim and vigor. When we spoke last week, Ruta was at the time on vacation in Mexico. As such, the bad weather and all made for, at times, some poor phone reception, but happily, nothing unbearable or impossible to understand. So with that, enjoy my encore interview with the wonderful Ruta Lee. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the podcast, the iconic Ruta Lee. Hi, Ruta.
Oh, my God, what a lovely introduction. Iconic. Well, I am in my own mind. I don't know about anybody else's, but thank you so much for the lovely welcome. How nice of you to share your audience with me again.
Well, you know what? You were a fan favorite, and a favorite of the interviewer, too, I might add.
That's very nice. Here, Pat, I've got to tell you, well, you caught me, and we'll explain this to your lovely audience that's listening in and watching everything that goes on in the world, that I am down in beautiful Mexico. I've had a little place here for some 40-odd years. Do I speak Spanish? No. I speak Spanish with my hands, is what I do. But I'm I'm on the property, or the grounds, I should say, of the lovely Hotel Las Vegas in Manzanillo, Mexico. And Manzanillo, for everybody who's not geographically tuned in, is sort of halfway between Acapulco and Puerto Vallarta on the Pacific coast. And the movie 10 was shot here, Pat. And, of course, everybody remembers that gorgeous creature with her braided hair running down the beach. Well, that was Las Vegas. And I'm sitting here looking at this gorgeous view. However, my telephones are not working properly, so therefore there's a lot of static on the line. Folks, don't get upset. Just understand that it's been pouring down rain here until I got here, and my roof is leaking. Other than that, everything is perfect. It's a nice change, always, to get away from home, which I love better than any place. And I think that I appreciate home more when I've been somewhere else. No matter how beautiful, wonderful, and amazing places are, and how lovely the people are, when you get home, you say, I'm so glad I live here. With all its faults, California is the place to be.
And the roof probably doesn't leak. And believe me, we're going to talk about that lovely house of yours. That's on the list here.
Oh, good.
I mean, look, before I talked to you the first time, I read Consider Your Ass Kissed, cover to cover.
I hope you enjoyed it 1/10 the amount that I enjoyed writing it.
Oh, thoroughly. As a matter of fact, I think the highlight of our first interview was when I just brought up the fact that Frank Sinatra had exposed his immense talent to you at one point. Singing, folks.
Oh, Pat, yes, he did. Now, that's a dead giveaway, and that should get people enthused about reading it, if nothing else. And talented he was. Very large fault. What can I tell you?
Is there no shame? I read that and went, Frank, didn't you feel bad the next day?
I doubt it. I mean, talent is talent. What are you going to do?
and his was truly God-given. Oh.
It truly was, but sure. And shared.
With a wide variety of audience. Oh, my goodness. Where has this gone?
I have to tell you that the first the reason that I became leading lady to Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and all of that was partially because of his fabulous talent on stage. I had never seen him work live before. I was too young to have experienced all of his big New York and screaming teenagers and all that. But I was invited to see him when he was coming in to help Mary Morrison, who owned the Macombo, which was one of 3 night spots on the Sunset Strip in Hollywood. And she was having a hard time because television had taken over, and audiences simply were not appearing at nightclubs anymore because they were home watching whatever the shows were. And so he came in to help out. And he said, I'll play a week, Tammy will play a week, Dean will play a week, well, we can't get business going. Well, of course, it was a sold-out house. And I had been invited by a lovely gentleman, and he had the front table with about 12 guests sitting at it. And Frank was working on a tiny little dais in front of the stage, because the stage was filled with his orchestra. He always had a full string section and everything. Well, he wasn't on the stage, he was working on the little dais. And I was directly under him. My feet at the table was directly under Frank Sinatra, and I was staring up at him, absolutely awestruck. And I know you know, Pat, your audience probably knows it. Nobody was as awesome and mesmerizing on a stage than Frank Sinatra. He was just incredible. And I was captivated. And a note came around to the host of our table asking to bring me around back a little bit, because it was so full that there was seats sort of behind Frank, his wall in front. And the gentleman introduced himself and he said, hello, my name is Arthur Hornblow Jr. I'm producing a movie called Witness for the Prosecution. And I've just given me the most unique screen talk. I watched you watch Frank Sinatra, and I think you'd be a very good love interest for Tyrone Power in my movie, Witness for the Prosecution. Did you come in on me, Mr. The director, Billy Wilder? And I said, it's tomorrow too soon. And I went in tomorrow, they put me on film. Marlene Dietrich took one look at the blonde hair and said, next time, forget it. I became a brunette overnight. And there I was, doing Witness for the Prosecution with these incredible stars. And what a film it was.
Yes.
Played in now a year or two later. And as you probably know, Frank Sinatra loved to entertain, and he loved nothing more than a big Italian dinner at his home, and then to run a new movie, whatever it was. And that night, they happened to be running Witness for the Prosecution. And he talks to his partner, Howard Koch, with whom I had worked many times. And he says, Howie, what do you think about this Ruta Lee chick? I mean, I've been seeing her on television a lot. How about we put her in one of our flicks coming up? And he said, you couldn't have picked a better dame. I love her. She's one of my favorites. That's how I got to be Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Connie Davis, Peter Rothman, Dean Lady in Sergeant 3. Now, is that a Hollywood story, or is that a Hollywood story?
It is. I mean, there you were in a perilous position in front of Frank Sinatra, just beneath him. I mean, and who would have thought you were actually auditioning? You were auditioning. You were being discovered.
Right, I was, which is just so amazing. And then to have, he never knew that. And then to have him know and find out that it was thanks to him that I got the part in Witness, what got me the part in Sergeant 3. I think it's rather astounding, and wonderful. And I love sharing that story with everybody because it's the beautiful part of Hollywood. Let's put it that way. And Frank Sinatra was without a doubt one of the finest people I have ever known, one of the most generous people I've ever known. And he did things for strangers in the night and for just odd, strange people or old friends who never knew that he picked up the hospital tab or the whatever,
Yeah.
He was just amazing. And I hope and he's having a hell of a good time with all of his buddies in heaven.
That's pretty great. We start out by getting Frank in hot water, and next thing you know, he's being redeemed with the compliments he deserves.
That's right. He does deserve it. He truly does.
It's true. It is true. Well, that is just one of many fascinating tales within this book, folks. You got to get it. I've read a lot of autobiographies, a lot, and my fans know that. My fans. Wait, you have fans. I have followers. What I meant to say was my followers are aware of that.
But that is the best. I mean, when you have people that turn on the set because you're going to be on, that's a great compliment and a great blessing. And so, hallelujah, and thank you, Lord, for the good things that come Pat's way, my way, everybody's way.
Well, see, that was it. Prior to the interview, I was like, I get to talk to Ruta Lee again, and I could not be more comfortable because the first time I talked to you, you made me feel so comfortable. But is that 15 minutes, or more like a half an hour in your case, prior to the interview where I'm like, what's that strange feeling in my stomach? What is that?
Why?
Oh,
why?
It's butterflies. Yes. Why?
Well, I'm thrilled to death to know that I give somebody butterflies. That's great. Wonderful. Thank you so much. You've made my day.
Well, and I like butterflies, just not in my stomach. And the thing was like, well, I was telling myself I'd be perfectly comfortable, and yet I'm like, it's kind of like, you're going on a really fun and yet slightly scary thrill ride at the amusement park, and you're standing in line. That's that feeling where I'm excited, looking forward to it, and going, just don't say anything stupid, Pat.
No, you can say anything stupid. The problem is if I say something stupid, which I will, but then what the heck? We're friends. We're talking. We're sharing time with people, and I'm thrilled to death. I mean, if you give me the mic, I'll just go on endlessly. Have you ever? I'm sure you have. Tell me about the interviews you have where you get monosyllabic answers. Well, how nice to have you here. Tell me about your last film. Well, it was nice. And haven't you had those? Because I've been on your end too. I've done a lot of interviewing as well. In fact, I did a 2.5 hours live with Rita every day. And it was just amazing how sometimes you got people that just refuse to talk. They're there to be interviewed, but they have nothing to say.
Well, I consider myself really lucky right now because I can't actually think of the 40 celebrities I've interviewed so far, of one that has left me high and dry. Not one.
You have really been blessed. That's fabulous.
It helps having that publicist of yours in my corner too, because I don't think he would put up with that either. I mean, he watches out for everybody. And I have not had that experience. Now I've got something to look forward to, Ruta. Thank you. Maybe.
Usually people that you get, though, come recommended by somebody. You don't just open the phone book and grab a number. And so I think maybe that's part of the blessing is that, whether it's Harlan Ball or whoever that does their job in public relations, puts people together that should be together.
Yeah. I think, that being part of the performing arts community, you don't want there to be dead air when you're on, you're on. Oh,
that's right.
Like, okay, so now I've heard plenty of rock star interviews like that, but that's probably because they didn't even know which end was up. But that.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that the truth? God.
But with actors, it's not like that. They're people. Yeah, I just made that up, folks. Thank you. I'm on a roll, can't you tell? And
Well, I suppose occasionally you run into a rock star that is a proper person. I mean, they really know what hard work is. I mean, that's not an easy life, traveling and doing shows here, there, and everywhere, and having to pull material together. It's not an easy life, but I just wonder how much drugs come into play, and what do they do? Do they have drugs to perform, and then drugs to put them to sleep, and more drugs to put them on a hot stage again? That's very, very confusing to me and very bewildering, and I have no idea.
I find that really interesting because, yes, that's it. And, as you're saying that, I'm thinking of MGM. I don't know why I'm thinking of MGM. I'm thinking of Judy Garland. I don't know why I'm thinking of Judy Garland. Or those players back then, the studio doctors. Yeah. That's a really good question. I just came up with a good question, Ruta. Did you ever experience the studio doctors being shoved in your face?
No. Only because I had either sprained an ankle or done something, and so that was it. But when it came to any kind of medication, never experienced it, never was close to it, never anything. Of course, I'm one of those that doesn't take aspirin until I'm at death's door. I'm just not a pill taker. And I'm on stuff anyway because of high blood pressure and, whatever. Things happen as you get older. Don't get older. Just stay young and gorgeous forever.
You've done that.
Well, I'm blessed in that I had parents, both of whom never looked their age and kept it together. My mother, God love her, was, I think, 96 when she died, and her brain was still functioning beautifully. I had her at home with me, and she'd go out and sit by the pool and look at the mountains and look at the trees and just enjoy everything. And I thought, wow, I just hope that happens to me. Well, it's coming up fast, Pat. Let's put it that way. It's coming up very fast. But I'm still, traveling and doing and enjoying life, and I'm enjoying the fruits of my labor. Let's put it that way.
Right. Well, I was going to say, I'm personal friends and have been for a number of years, close friends with Kathy Garver.
Oh, God, is she a doll or is she a doll?
The Energizer Bunny is what I call her. And
yeah.
You're the Energizer Bunny, too, Mach 2. But I noticed that you went to the Western Roundup this year in Canab.
And Canab, yes. And of course she was there and being absolutely marvelous. And did she tell you about the wedding that we all attended?
I was just going to bring that up. I saw that. I saw a video of it.
I'm so glad because, it was just fan-frigging-tastic. All of a sudden, this little dynamo, Kathy Garver, who is so full of piss and vinegar, it was unbelievable. And she grabs these people and says, "You've been going together for how many years? Come on, we've got a minister right here in the crowd. Come on, minister, come over here, marry them." And he did. And I just hope that the groom doesn't get so upset that he comes and shoots Kathy Garver.
Now, that's the inside story that I did not know. I thought they were engaged, and she saw an opportunity to go in and take charge.
Yeah, he engaged for some 7 or 8 years.
Well, okay, then it's legit. It was so interesting to see you and Kathy as bridesmaids, just off the cuff, and I thought, what an amazing wedding that is.
That's something for him to talk about for the rest of his life, or for her too, I would think.
Oh, exactly. I thought that was really, really cool. And again...
Oh, I'm so glad she told you about it.
Yeah. It's funny because I saw it. She posted it on her fan page, and, we keep in touch, like I said, and it was just like, now that's cool. Hey, that's Ruta Lee. And I didn't know she was there with you, or you were there with her.
I was. Well, remember I talked about Sergeant 3 with Frank Sinatra and Dean and everybody. Well, we were on location up in Canab, Utah. we were there for, I don't know, 6 weeks or something. And so that was an incredible experience because Frank, kind of doesn't stay put very long in one place. And so he had a fleet of planes there. And, let me tell you, I used to get picked up because Frank didn't come to work until about 11. But I, of course, as the new kid on the block and the leading lady, would get to make up 6:30, 7:30 in the morning. And then it would be a bit of a drive out to the location against these fabulous mountains that looked like they had been painted they were painted by the Almighty, but these great colors of orange and pink and red and purple and yellows in the mountainside. And Frank arranged for me to be flown to work rather than take the bus with the crew. And by flown to work, I mean in a helicopter. And Pat, you have no idea how much fun it is to be taking a jackrabbit across a ferry somewhere and then go zoom up into an eagle berry in the mountainside, that the helicopter can get to. It was just incredible. The experience was wonderful. And of course, he worked it out. This is Frank and his powerful, place in life that he was. He would play a week at the Sands. So we went for Frank's opening and we went for Frank's closing. And the next day we would fly down again to Las Vegas, I'm talking about, from Canab, and Dean Martin's opening. And then we would fly down for Dean Martin's closing. Then we would fly up for Frank and for Sandy's opening, and so it went all the way through. So I spent just as much time in Las Vegas as I did on location in Canab, Utah. And that was the time, I think I wrote about this in the book, I'm not sure, and the only time that I met Marilyn Monroe. Frank had given Dean a birthday party, and there was a table of about 30 people to see the show that night. And everybody's in their diamonds and their glitzy gowns and their hairdo. And I'm in a cute little cotton dress that I brought to the location in Canab, Utah, and there I am sitting like next to John Wayne and Milton Berle and having a great time. And all of a sudden, there was a silence that came over the room. And I looked up, and Frank was walking in the door of the casino, not the casino, but the showroom, with Marilyn Monroe on his arm. And that girl didn't need a spotlight. She had an inner one. She glowed. Who else had that? The boards always had that. All the boards sisters had it. But when Marilyn came in, she was wearing a white fox wrap with her white beaded dress and her platinum blonde hair. And on Frank's arm, she was just the most glorious creature I'd ever seen. And that was the one and only time I ever spent with Marilyn Monroe. But it was quite a treat.
I do remember that portion of the book. I didn't at first, but then once you started describing it to me, and I remembered that you were just awestruck. And quite frankly, I don't see how anybody couldn't be awestruck with Ruta Lee, but yeah, Marilyn.
Well, thank you. But I was not exactly well put together that night.
Well, you were in character, or ready to be in character, so,
That's true. I brought one little guess because Dean said, I remember when I got there, I said, what do you do here in Canab, Utah? It was a tiny little, what block town, maybe two blocks. He said, well, on Saturday night, we walk down to the end of the street. We get a Dairy Queen, and then we walk back and we stop at the barber shop and watch him give haircuts. And that's the big thrill.
Wow.
That was my darling. Dean was, I think, the funniest guy that God put on this earth.
Well, I know that so many films and television had been filmed on location there, and I'm going to make it out next year. I'm going to make it out next year. I'm going to make so. Oh,
dude. Well, I did another movie up there, too, the one with Audie Murphy, Bullet for a Bad Man. which great fun. We weren't in Canab. We were closer to St. George, but that's not far from Canab. And so therefore we shot, in the vicinity of Canab. Now, Utah is really absolutely gorgeous. What a great state. Every state has its pride and joy, in whatever the scenic value is. But boy, Utah sure has a lot going for it. Wow.
Yeah. Yes, it does. And we're going to do some traveling in our conversation right now. I'm flying you back home to Los Angeles, Rita. Are you with me? You're on the plane?
Yep, I'm with you.
To this beautiful home that you live in, this estate, that was owned by, well, I don't know who all the previous owners were, but there was a couple that were somewhat notable.
One couple that lived there, and I keep rubbing my fanny on the walls. Although it's all right to say ass. I keep rubbing my ass on the walls.
You can say ass, yeah.
Some of Rita Hayworth's glamour will stick. Rita Hayworth and Orson Welles. I mean, she truly was one of the great screen goddesses.
Yeah.
And what an amazingly talented and lovely girl. And then many years later, the Thalians, which Debbie Reynolds and I headed for a lot of years.
Oh yes.
We honored everybody from Frank Sinatra through Whoopi Goldberg through Lucille Ball through everybody. That year we were honoring Rita Hayworth. She was our honoree and our star. And nobody at that point, Pat, was really at all familiar with Alzheimer's. And we all assumed the fact that she was a little bit loopy and not exactly communicating the way she should. We thought she was drunk. Everybody thought that. And I stop and think of all the people who have really been considered drunks that were not drinkers, but obviously had a version of dementia or Alzheimer's. But Debbie was so wonderful. She just sat her down on a stool and said, "Here, you just sit and let me do all the talking about you. How wonderful you are in the movies," and we ran clips and so on and so forth. And Debbie really deserved the croix de guerre, for that, because she handled it so well, and she saw something was very wrong, and it wasn't a matter of drinking too much. She wasn't there totally. She still looked beautiful, but she was not any there.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, I was trying to do my meager research here as best I can, and I had read that she, when married to Orson Welles, really wanted to, develop a homestead.
Yeah.
And he was not all into doing that. He was more, what have I gotten myself into kind of a guy, and didn't really want to be a part of that. So would you say, in this beautiful home, because I've seen pictures, that it has her touch much more than the great directors, as far as decorum? And I mean, do you feel, I know you're rubbing your ass against everything there, and you were just saying that, so I can say that. Get away with it. I hope.
And that's beautiful. I said it first. That's my fault. Okay. But the house is fabulous. It's an old house. It was built in 1923. And my darling friend Margaret O'Brien told me that she used to come up to the house to go swimming. Isn't that sweet?
Oh, yeah.
That they invite her to come up to go swimming. So she remembers the house and how the pool is built into the side of the mountain. It's on the second level. How many houses have a pool on the second level? Other than hotels, But it's a beautiful old house, but I never really got to talk to Rita about having lived there, because she sat at my table, and I did chat with her, but not anything about the house. I didn't go into, oh, guess what? I'm sleeping in your bedroom,
But don't you think she would be fascinated by the fact that you had the former president of Lithuania and his first lady? Tell us about that, Ruta.
Well, now listen, this is the best part. This is the second time I've had a Lithuanian president as a guest in my home. The first time was a few years back, and this is a wonderful story. Valdas Adamkus was the first president, not that I knew, but that I invited to my home. That was quite a story. He, as a tiny child, was taken along with his siblings and parents, and they literally walked out of Lithuania and across and into Germany and everything else after the war, when the Russians or the communists were taking over Lithuania. They got out. And they wound up going from, campsite to campsite, and eventually wound up through someone's great auspices in Chicago. Valdas grew up in Chicago and became the fabulous American story of, with hard work and perseverance, you can do anything. Became very, very successful and very wealthy. And he went back to Lithuania and said, what can I do for Lithuania? And he became president of Lithuania.
Wow.
He mentored the now president of Lithuania. And when Valdas Adamkus came to Los Angeles and came to my house, I had, a big, wonderful party of 50, 60 guests and dinner and whatnot. And I don't ever remember security and all of the people coming and looking and touching and doing. Whereas when this president came, the security came the day before. They came with, they traveled with him. They stayed down on the driveway. They went through the house and kind of checked things out. Believe it or not, checked bathrooms. Isn't that interesting? So that goes to show you how times have changed, that there was no security the last time the president came with his wife, but this time there was.
Well, such is the times we live in.
I'm so sorry to say that, too. And he came, and of course he had with him the ambassador, who is mostly in Washington, or spends time in New York as well. But they came along. He had a small entourage that was traveling with him, including both our consuls, but in Los Angeles. So they were there for lunch. He had like 2 hours period, to dedicate to it. But it was lovely, and I was presented with a beautiful award once again from Lithuania, and I have received the highest honors now that Lithuania has to offer from both presidents, and I'm very grateful and thrilled to death. Of course, there are not too many Lithuanians in our business. There are a few more now than there used to be. And Jillian is my very good friend. The beautiful Anne Jillian. She shoots on Broadway and
yes.
Sugar Babies, Florida, and It's a Living. Well, she was invited to lunch, she and her husband, and she was coming. And the day before the luncheon, she was in a horrendous automobile accident. Everything was broken on her and her husband. He's still in ICU, and they've had to do brain surgery several times to get the blood off. And her feet were broken, and she's always been a dancer. And she's just so grateful that her hands turned out okay. So she's now at home, but can't walk, can't do anything. Just has to be lifted into the bed and into a chair so she can get around. So everybody send up a good thought and a small prayer that she heals fast and that things will be okay.
Yeah. Gosh, I had not heard about it. Of course, I know who she is. And
it wasn't public I talked about, but I just want everybody that's one of your followers to kind of help with a kind thought.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All that you had been through with your Lithuanian, what do you call it? Your expertise at having to deal with the communists, the Russians, getting your grandmother out. It's just...
That's quite a story.
It is such a story.
I gave it very short shrift in my book because I wanted the book to be fun and a lot of giggles. And there were not giggles in my grandmother's story. To think that she and my grandfather, who were not the intelligentsia, they were not professors, they were not poets or artists or writers or politicians, they were farm folk. They were considered wealthy because they had a cow, and that they could live by. And when they were repatriating all those Eastern European countries, Latvia, Poland, Estonia, Lithuania, all of those countries, they were bringing Russians in and taking the locals out. There are these little farm people put on a train, a cattle car with open, slats, and shipped off to Siberia. 6 weeks getting to Siberia. My grandfather, along with many of the other men, huddled the women together and the children in the cattle cars, trying to keep them warmer. His legs were frozen.
Yeah.
And at one of the stations, when they stopped and took off his boots, the flesh came off with the gangrene had put in. He died, and grandmother didn't even know it. She was still on the train being sent off to the cold climes of Siberia. And, I got her out eventually. Eventually, she hitchhiked across Siberia to other family members that had been deported. And eventually they were permitted to go back to Lithuania. They could either stay in what they built there with their own hands by felling trees and putting them together to make huts of some kind, or they could go back to Lithuania. And nobody ever explained why that happened. Nobody could.
Yeah. In your book, one of the lines that really struck me was you say, real humanity comes into play under adverse conditions. And That's story true. Of her just wanting to end it all and then being helped by, of all things, a Russian soldier, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
It's just, like I said, this is movie material, folks. We certainly won't be able to cover nearly enough on this story with this podcast.
By the way, she wound up being the nanny to that soldier's children.
Yeah.
He took her out of the camp that she was in and took her to his home, which wasn't a hell of a lot better, but it was warmer at least. And at least she was given some food there, She ate with the children. So it's an amazing story. So what I'm going to do now is my next book is going to be about my grandmother and my mother having the guts and the stamina to try to get food and packages to her in Siberia. And then when she was permitted to come back to Lithuania, sending food and packages again to the Soviet Union, because Lithuania was then taken in by the Soviet Union. And then she passed that need to do something for my family. And I did. I started making out these logs, which were just an amazing document that you had to do, and they only lasted 6 months, and then you had to make another one. But that little grandmother is the one that I brought to the United States finally. And she lived 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. And I thought, oh God, how come such a short time you gave me with her after all the trouble I went to and everything she's been through. But she died a happy camper because I had arranged for another cousin of mine, one of her daughters, to come to the United States as well. And she was arriving the day that my grandmother died. And I was on the Tonight Show that night in New York. And the producer came to me and said, Ruta, I have terrible news for you. I don't know that you're going to want to do the show. If you don't, it's okay. And he told me about my grandmother dying. And he said, do you think you want to go on? I said, hell yes, because it was the beautiful people of the United States that were pulling for me and were sending up prayers and were sending little gifts and welcome to the United States cards to my grandmother, and it was on the Tonight Show that they heard about all of this, because Johnny and the Tonight Show followed my adventures like the perils of Pauline, trying to get my grandmother out. And then, she guested on the show.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that just amazing?
Yeah, I was going to say, 2 years, 2 months, 2 days, but you introduced her to millions of people. I mean,
yeah,
that's pretty cool, especially because there was the story behind it is so poignant and so important.
It is. And what's important is that I'm so worried that our young people, not just ours, but every country's young people, have no idea of what living under a communist system is. If you live in a free country, you take it all for granted.
Yeah.
And you have no idea of how precious that independence and freedom is. And I think of the beautiful young men and women who put their bodies down in front of Russian tanks and were killed by Russian guns trying to liberate Lithuania, and they did it. They're gone, but their memory lives on, and it should live on forever. And young people don't know about all that stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's tough. But the glimmers of hope and the fact that the Thalians, this is going to tie into what I was going to bring up, which, of course, honors and helps those that have served this country for, well, the Thalians it's over 60 years of that entity, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we were Hollywood for mental health, which is kind of a joke in itself. Hollywood for mental health. And we dealt from pediatric to geriatric care. And then about 10 years ago, someone over at UCLA and Operation Men came to me and said, you're missing the boat on something. You are not concerned as Thalians with the plight of our returning veterans, those people who get, blown to bits and Operation Men put them together, but nobody's dealing with the mind and the spirit. So we went ahead and took on the new responsibility, and it is so exciting. And we're going to do one of our fundraisers, our Christmas gala is coming up on December 2nd.
Yes.
And we're offering an amazing American, a real American that is so proud of helping the way he does, the returning veteran, the wonderful Gary Sinise. What a fine actor, what a fine performer, and just what a fine American.
Yeah, it's true. And of course you want to think, now, did he get that feeling? Because, of course, in Forrest Gump, he played Sergeant Dan, and if you remember the movie, you know what happened to Sergeant Dan. And, you got to get into your roles. You got to live, you want to play it right. And I just wonder if that was when he started really going, you know what, I got to do something about this.
I don't know, and that's something that I should ask him if I have the opportunity. I just thought of him as such a good actor all the time. And, another one of my girlfriends, good grief, I suddenly did a blank on her name, Stephanie Powers, gave him one of his first acting jobs. She was responsible for some movie, the name of which I can't remember now, but she gave him a role and she said he was absolutely splendid in it. And so she's going to be at the event. They're kind of all-star evenings, and she'll be there to honor Gary as well, which I think is sensational.
That's fantastic. Yes, I've read up a bit on what he's done and what he's doing, and yeah, it just reminds me of Ruta Lee somehow. I don't know.
Thank you. Well, I have certainly worked my tail off for the Thalians for a lot of years, and
Yes.
I sort of feel my way of paying back and paying forward for the great things that have happened to me and the joys that I've had in life. And I just invite everybody that's hearing my voice today to please go to the Thalians, THALIANS.org, and
Contribute.
send us, and you'll find out what it's all about. But send us $5, $50, $500,000 if you have it. We could use it, and I will be forever grateful. And I will say in advance of your doing that, my darling friends, consider your ass kissed.
That's the line. That's the line that gets said. And, you know, it's such a wonderful way of expressing, you know, admiration and gratitude. I mean, some people are like, huh? No, you got to hear it from Ruta and the way she says it. It's like, oh, please, I want to consider my ass kissed.
My darling friend George Pinocchio, who is the red carpet man, you know, for all the events on ABC television, is a longtime friend, and he's just wonderful. And he's, of course, the news gatherer. And he's heard me for years at the Thalians when people give me money for the organization. What else can I say but from the bottom of my heart, please consider your ass kissed. and it comes from true gratitude, and it's true gratitude to anybody who has bought my book, anybody who has turned the television on because I'm on, or turned on the radio because I'm on, or gone to see me in a movie, or come to see me in a play or a musical. What else can I do but very honestly be very grateful and say thank you and consider your ass kissed?
Well, and of course, I will leave the information that Ruta has just given you in the description, so folks, you'll be able to find it easily. I'm going to let you get on with your wonderful south of the border excursion.
Excursion, yes.
The roof leaks, yes, but that's all right.
I'm going over to see a doctor, so I haven't had breakfast or lunch or anything yet, because they're going to do blood work. I always go see my doctor here when I'm here. And they're all trained in California or New York or somewhere, but they're here, so there's great doctors. So wish me luck, and I wish you luck. And the holidays are coming up, Pat.
Yes.
So to everybody, I mean, Halloween is fun, it's a lark, but a really fabulous and loving, happy Thanksgiving. We have so much to be grateful for, and then the Christmas holidays are coming up. So may I wish you all a loving holiday season, and one that's blessed with everything that you want, and above all, health.
Yes, absolutely. And everybody, buy this book, because it makes a great Christmas gift. Had to throw that in there. It's true.
A very good stocking stuffer. Very good. Thank you for letting me guest with you, dear Pat. I love you, and you have my number, so you know where to find me.
I do, and I thank you. And again, have a great rest of your trip. And like I was going to say, you have happy holidays too, dear one, because boy, if there's anyone that deserves it, it's Ruta Lee. Thank you, dear.
Thank you. I love you all. Bye for now.
There you have it, another retro TV radio podcast in the books. Having read Ruta's book, Consider Your Ass Kissed, I can absolutely say with confidence that if you love stories about the fame of Hollywood's golden days, you will love her book. The story of her plight to have her grandmother brought to America is worth the price alone. Also, be sure to check the link in the description to her benefit foundation, the Thalians, and perhaps learn about how to get involved with its highly worthy causes. Oh, and one quick disclaimer. I mistakenly referred to Gary Sinise's character in Forrest Gump as Sergeant Dan, while at the same time knowing full well it was Lieutenant Dan. End of disclaimer. If you haven't already, please subscribe and leave a positive review to this podcast. You can follow me on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Golden Rage of TV and on X at Golden Rage of TV1. Once again, this is your host, Pat McCormack, and thanks again for listening to Retro TV Radio.